Recording is confirmed. Um, yeah, this is um this is the town hall for the recent GM changes and Foci limits for uh for the ShadowHaven community. So let's go over them briefly, and then I'll take questions. Um, so the changes are sort of split up into a few sections. There's our new GM rules, the limits for foci, a request to change our culture, a call for more GMs, an effort to stat out more grunts. Um, I'll sort of go over this briefly to not just read the document because that would be boring. But the we first sort of spread out the high end of the threat and added two new threat categories: deadly and extreme threat. Um, to go above high threat. And we sort of saw this with some GMs making sort of threat categories that went between semi-prime and high threat, but we more formalized what this what this is. We we then have more explicit limitations on. Um, excuse me, I misspoke. We then let our level 0 GMs, which are the GMs who can GM on the ShadowHaven with no interview process, no oversight. You just have to read the GM rules and agree to follow the rules. We allow them to run more low milk. We allow them to run milk, low, and medium threat runs with no approval required, and they can go up to high or deadly with approval or with a GM coach. Um, and then sort of the upper bound level 1 and 2 and 3 GMs sort of look the same as before. Um, Another important going through the GM rewards, we bumped up the milk run GMP to 6, and I forgot what the old payout was, but I think there were slight buffs to the lower threat categories to try and encourage GMs to GM on the lower band of the threats. Um, we now uh, we now expect our GMs to follow the threat level table more closely, particularly in the initiation grades on grunts and submersions. Um, this is we have this expectation because we don't want a feedback loop where the players get more powerful to counteract the game masters using more powerful characters and allowing that feedback loop to sort of spike up our power level rapidly. Um, we updated our threat level system. I think in the future talk I'll go over how we derived the threat level system, but essentially we looked through every fifth edition book for every grunt, um, and ran a Python script to try to fit the professional rating levels to a graph. And if you look at data, it's all over the place. So what we then did is try to build a system where we smeared out all the PR high end PR6 units into additional bands above PR6. So if you look at this link, and hopefully it's not going to work on the video, but if you go to that link, you'll see it. And I'll answer any specific questions. We adjusted our negative RVP limits. On ShadowHaven, if you GM has a limit on what negative impact a run can have on a player, and they're a little stricter before we loosened them, especially as you go above high threat um, to that. And this sort of balances out, so new players have sort of an environment where they can explore and learn the game, but more seasoned players have more high stakes environment to explore the end game of Shadowrun. We placed a hard limit on foci for players and NPCs. This is mainly to future-proof the Haven. The limit's quite high, but there is no written limit on foci, and we don't want to see a place where there are forced 20 foci in play. So we put a limit here, and it is an arbitrary number, but we justified it mainly because we don't think there's anything in play at this limit. You also get a wiki page, and like the thematics team and shared story team will recognize the foci as a legendary foci if you have it at the limit. Excuse me. I should have gotten a glass of water before this. Let's see. I'm scrolling through I'm scrolling through the document now. You all can't. So anyone who's listening live probably can't see my screen, but the recording has my screen. Yeah, we just called for a culture change to try to de-emphasize power, and we empowered our GMs to better enforce what expectations they have for player characters at their tables. We also are calling for more GMs, especially GMs who want to run milk runs or low threat runs. I miss the days of having like Taco Temple runs and silly nonsense runs. Not nonsense is the wrong word, but like silly RP oriented, low stakes, fun runs. That really strikes. Those type of run really strikes at to the ethos of what I want to ShadowHaven to be. Welcoming for completely inexperienced players to sort of learn the sixth world. There's a place for the high end, but I want to. The fact that we don't have milk runs is disappointing. And I want to see more GMs who specialize in that. Another goal I have is I want the community to stat out 100 grunts of PR5 or lower by the end of the year to really help these new GMs gain a foothold in the system. There's something called a rule of 12 that's useful for GM, but you need a fair bit of experience before you can start using that. Like when you're experienced enough, you can sort of build a character in your head rapidly. That's rule of 12. But if you're brand new, rule of 12 is a bit too abstract without the theory behind it. Yeah, that was me going very quickly through the document. There's a link. If you want to read it in detail, but I will take questions now. So I have to admit, I have the most scuffed setup right now. So I'm currently booting up my phone so I can read the questions and filling the dead air because I am totally prepared and a professional community runner of the highest degree and best standard. That's me, who is currently trying to find the channel with the question series. Okay. So questions. I'm scrolling through the days of like it used to be like almost every other day there'll be Taco Temple run, and just shenanigans would happen, and that was amazing. Like that slice of life, that slice of life aspect of Shadowrun, I find very compelling. And you need like the high threat save the world runs to build the tension in those slice of life scenes, but those slice of life scenes are really fun, and I want to see more of them. I want to see like runners try to buy energy drinks at the convenience store and shenanigans happen. Um, okay, I'm going to butcher usernames right away. Um, I suppose the first question is Arctmag. That was bad. Says I support what the goal of this is, but I have issues with the threat tables in various ways. Considering we are more tightly bound to it, I have quite a bit to bring up. One example is foci are limited by threat level. Is this meant to be weapon or power foci? It's all foci. Um, as it's incredibly limiting on weaker foci, aka masking foci. Um, it's all foci for now. Um, masking foci. Not all numbers are built equally. We'll see. So a lot of this is what's the right words to use? A lot of this is emergency action's not the right word, but it's things are getting to the point. There's this feedback loop. I'll start from the beginning. There's an LC system design. Oh god, I'm going to get nerdy about LC. God, I'm a nerd. Anyway, in LC system design, we there's this phenomena where the game masters will start increasing their power level in response to the player characters getting more powerful. Um, so the player characters feel they need to optimize their characters more and more. This starts to lock out your more. Um, this starts to lock out your unoptimized view builds, and in extreme cases locks out your even new players. Um, we started to see that feedback loop uh, turning, which is terrifying as the administrator of an LC, because that's the thing that can kill off your LC. So when I say a lot of this is emergency action, it's not quite the right word, but when you start to see that feedback loop going, you need to step in. So yes, this is a very aggressive limit. If it achieves its goal in breaking the feedback loop, we could probably tune it quite rapidly. Um, but let's maybe give it a month and see how it plays out. Um, uh, Bur Burudor. God, that was a bad pronunciation. As someone who hasn't played in a while, like the whole summer, how many changes do I need to consider before getting back in the server? Um, so if you scroll through the ShadowHaven BBS subreddit, excuse me, we list every major change as sort of our change log. Um, I don't recall any huge rulings over the summer. Um, Nothing earth shattering happened to memory. Yeah, go to reddit.com/r/ShadowHavenBBS, and that's sort of our change log. Um, yeah, scrolling for questions. Scrolling for questions. Um, Scrolling for questions. Did we ever figure out? Nico asked, did we ever figure out why slash how certain people won the Taco Temple lottery? CGL never gave an official answer. My headcanon is that Taco Temple is influencing fate by selecting winners to achieve their mysterious ends. Like in the book that went over Taco Temple, they showed like a Baron's rat winning and helping their community by winning. Um, so it's one of those more like I think they kept it intentionally vague so GMs can write um, plots worthy of a board and red string between multiple pictures. Um, Archmag says, I think initiation grades are being very overrated, both in mechanical power and lore rarity. Right now, you can only get to IG2 at the same point you have rating 12 skills. Considering there are PR5 units with multiple IG grades, this seems extreme. Additionally, the table assumes that each IG increase is accompanied by an increasing in magic rating. It's just also not what really happens. So the professional rating that CGL gave us is all over the place. I can write an article going over the statistics, but there's basically no rhyme or reason within PR. Um, um, so the main reason, and I don't want to speak for the council, but the main reason why I proposed to keep the initiation grades at higher threats was to help protect weaker mundane builds that don't have as many countermeasures to magic. Um, Centering being the big one. That's why IG, even a single grade of initiation is a big deal because the grunts start getting centering. That means the countermeasures you can do. Like, I'll give you an example. When our power level was weaker, um, I had a group set. This is a silly story. I had a team figure out a way to get the target and their bodyguards to a goth club with a background count aspected towards like misery and death. Is most like generic goth club you could think of, so that they could have an advantage against the awakened opposition. You start to break down interesting choices like that when the Op 4 has censoring. So, at least in my mind, one initiation grade is quite significant. And the thing I'm trying to strike at is to make it not necessary to optimize. Like, yeah, I want it so our stance is like, if you have a really powerful thing, it's nice, but it's not at all required. Um, um, I hope I did a good job explaining this. Yeah, I guess to answer your question directly, we ultimately made up what those limits should be, and we'll evaluate. Oh God, I'm going to be a complete nerd about. Yeah, if you all will humor me as I nerd out the philosophy of running an LC. This is a complex adaptive system. I can with certainty tell you how like adding gamma wear would impact how a street sand might change the way they build their character. but predicting all the second order and third order effects of a decision like that are very hard. So you take the best you can, you do the best you can do, and you observe what your prediction does. Um, if it's such that these limits are too aggressive on awakened grunts, we will refine that. But this seemed like a decent starting place. Um, I hope that answered your question. Um, Sorry, I'm looking for other questions, and I completely lost where the event chat was. Ah, here it is. I guess also to to say this, Shadowrun's very much a pick your own threat level system. Depending on how you interpret the setting and the rules, you can have vastly different game styles. This goes back into this is an adaptive, complex system, um, such that there's not a soul who knows how to run this game, um, and everyone's just doing the best they can. Um, yeah, I I think these are right numbers. I also say like your threat level shouldn't impact your thematics of what you want to run. You don't need. You can have a Ganger run be semi prime if you're throwing if you're throwing higher tier stuff at the characters. It's just you sort of want to signpost what the the threat level and the TL tables are ultimately communication tools to your players to sort of signpost what the potential outcomes are. Um, they are abstract communication tools at the end of the day. So you shouldn't feel too constrained by them. But yeah, if so, I guess in your case, if you want to put a higher IG character, um, um, just sign the post as like if you want to say have a ganger with like Magic 4, IG 4, um, signpost that as an extreme threat run, and that's fine. It's just more communicating what is on your run so players can make their own decisions on if they want to apply. Because as initiation grades go up, you have this the mechanical interactions get more complicated, more difficult to model. Um, yeah, I guess I hope I answered your question. Um, well, I recall you had ideas about like San Francisco running or something you want to do earlier. Um, I haven't seen it go quite as hope. Any other ideas about how to work multinational stuff in the future? I'll tell you what, the +6 GMP for running stuff in a new location helped inspire me to diversify run locations. Yeah, council's kicking around, letting it, making it so like if you have a lifestyle, like for example, medium plus in a different city, you can travel for free between your lifestyle styles. Um, you also might bump up with the GMP award. It's it's going decently though. It's just we've had bigger fires to put out in the recent days. Um, uh, what is the thematic justification for adding quality to a unit? Would a well-trained professional spire qualify for having instinctive hack? Um, would a special forces soldier qualify for shoot first, don't ask questions? You can you can write the lore around anything you want to imply. It's just like it should be. You should weave it into that unit's stories. For example, the special forces drugs with shoot first, don't ask questions would in their background have a bunch of stories of how they do that. How like they maybe this is going to get dark, but maybe they fired at civilians one time because they like just fire. Maybe they um, they had like a friendly fire incident because they're trained to just go at it. Um, um, Professionally trained spire have instinctive hack. Instinctive hack is a little harder. Let me read what it does again. Instinctive Shadowrun instinctive hack. Shadowrun instinctive hack. Um, Instinctive hack. I forgot what that quality does. But yeah, the main thing about qualities on grunts is that like the unit as a when you put a quality on an individual person, you can justify that quality with that individual's backstory. When you have grunts, you need to justify it so the whole unit has that quality, which is a higher tier thematic justification. So for like your special forces example, you could you can have as like as part of their training, they're trained to like quick draw on someone and go for it, um, and that really drives like how they would RP with someone, how they would interact. Yeah, it's just a higher weight. Um, Reading for questions. Reading for questions. Are there plans to raise carriage and pay? Stamping a sheet can be a multi-hour long process. It involves communication, a lot of spoons. It's very easy to burn out, and carriage and seems to go through phases of burnout fairly regularly. Um, we could discuss that. The We had a cycle. Um, a lot of the GM changes was from a cycle when we were overpaying. Um, I think at one time my memory might be faulty. At one time it was like something like almost 12 GMP for a sheet. It's a lot of GMP. Um, um, I remember one former ShadowHaven member getting a lot, almost like 1,000 GMP from just carriage and work. This was before we capped GMP. It's possible we overreacted. Um, I can't give an answer right now, but it's worth discussing. Um, but there is some hesitation to raise the pay because of our GM balance, our GMP balance, and we're currently going through a power level crisis. Um, I just feel like this isn't a realistic communication threat. Pumping up the entire run threat threshold for a bigger IG. Um, I should read the question more fully for the recording. I just feel like this isn't a realistic communication threat. Pumping up the entire run threat threshold for a slightly bigger IG than normal is on someone is kind of misadvertising the run and the scope of going into it. Like a person with a R6 maxing focus would count as a TR11 unit, aka semi-prime tier. Interesting. I guess I would say two things about this. These are just the grunts. these limits are just on the bulk units that you would see a lot of. Prime NPCs are slightly different. Those are special single units with special abilities and generally special and like are actually named. It's a very different thing, but than having like a bunch of grunts that I can throw 12 of with initiation grades and having like a director of security with initiation grade. Um, we could also probably have a system where GMs can append to the threat, so you could have like low threat plus IG6 to handle edge cases. There's an edge case. There's another edge case with this system where someone does a hunting run, and like a lot of the magical critters have have a fair decent amount of magic. Excuse me. That's definitely an edge case that we ran into. Um, yeah, I could probably we could probably design like a pen system for GMs to modify the threat to better fit what they're describing, but um, I still feel that for bulk grunts where I can throw a lot of them at a team, this is the right direction to go. Um, you could probably system we would probably have is like allow GMs to append plus prime NPC, uh, and just develop some guidelines around prime NPCs that are more useful and more free because it's a very different story of having just one or maybe like even four NPCs with high initiation grades versus like this platoon of soldiers are all initiated. Um, yeah, probably some sort of threat append system. I'll write something, but I feel like these are the right numbers for just grunts, where I can throw just a truck ton of them at the players. Um, I'm reading for questions. Um, reading for questions. Yeah, these are like that threat level is just describing grunts, which is why it's very restricted. Um, you like so. Oh man, so we kind of have a touchy relationship with CGL. I fear like the thing I'm about to say is just gonna pour more gasoline on that, but whatever. So CGL has this adventure. I forget the name of the adventure. It's the one that, where you uncover a what's it, Black Lodge cell in Washington D.C. And in this adventure, and this is a quote. If the players are bored, you can throw these Black Lodge grunts at them, and then you go look at the sheet, and like they're initiate grade 6. No, excuse me, no, initiate is higher initiate. I'm gonna find where this thing is and show it to you all because it's absurd, and like it's 20 of them, and you can't do that. That's the thing I don't want happening. Like if you throw just one, I really don't care about the case where you have a prime NPC and there's like just one of them on the field. It's like the bulk units where you throw a whole crud ton at the PC or things start breaking. Um, and that's what threat level limits. Um, So in that regard, I really think those are the right numbers. We could do a better job at describing that prime NPCs are outside that system. Um, so yeah, I'll get to that. Um, okay, I think that's all the questions. I'll hang out for a few more minutes. Um, but yeah, I guess I don't want a bunch of grunts with a bunch of IG grades thrown at the PCs. It gets kind of broken when you do that. But we could carve out. We'd be more clear about where prime NPCs sit. Um, Mainly because I'm imagining. So I'm imagining that like low threat level you use street gen rules. Um, Medium threat you use like street gen plus some karma. High threat you use normal gen, and then add karma from there as limits. So it would be a different. It would just be a different system where you could be a bit more flexible with the IG grades if you want to go in that direction. But grunts should be fairly limited because you could throw so many of them. Do you have any thoughts, either as an individual or from your position, on where the shared story is going? Less about whether it's good or bad, more whether it's going where you expected, or if the GMs have surprised you. It's going well. Liked, I liked the recent Prime run. Um, Recent Prime run was interesting. Um, I'm interested to see where the DA meta plot goes. Um, Although I am concerned, some point in the nearest future will trigger the Detroit meta plot, and that meta plot leads to Seattle going independent. Um, and basically, the whole that will be an interesting time. So we may have to wait until DA meta plot finishes completely before triggering that, because I'm pretty sure if Seattle went independent, that would just ruin the DA office. I'm not sure. Um, yeah, but it's going well. It's just air traffic controlling different meta plots to make sure you don't collide. Um, there is potential for collision between meta plots, but it's going smooth. There hasn't been GMs fighting over things, so that's all I can really ask for. Um, is there anything you're willing to say on concerns of mods and council being out of touch with the player base? So a lot of time this concern's brought up in respect to minimums on how many games leadership should play, and I'm opposed to that idea. Um, Mainly because the staff already spend so much time on the server. Like just today, like I woke up at 10 a.m. and was doing admin stuff until now. Um, and I don't think it's very viable for a volunteer position to add game requirements on top of that. Um, Now, in terms of being out of touch in general, um, that's interesting. We we aim to build robust feedback systems and capture feedback. Um, and a lot of all the changes we've done now, we gathered from the public debate about the change to grayware. Um, and sort of that conversation led to power level. So that sort of gave us signal that we should act in a certain direction. Um, as far as moderation goes, we to sort of show the smoke and mirrors and what goes behind the scenes. We typically only act when we get reports, and then in order to protect the reporter, we take the reputation hits. I'd rather it be that way. Um, I'd rather someone hate me than someone hate someone for reporting something. Um, so yeah. That said, we definitely can do a better job. I think the tough questions for leadership is going decently. That thread is going decently. I plan to do more of these town halls. And yeah, but the connect idea of having minimums run for amount of runs, I don't agree with. I do encourage the staff to do runs, but especially recently, things have been fairly intense on the server, and like just this one report, we put out an 8-page report. It takes time to throw together 8 pages of rules changes. I'm currently pushing staff to finish the Defiance Manifest, and each of those qualities mainly is maybe something like 5 hours of work to really like refine and think about equality and debate it among the staff. Um, so no, I don't really see run minimums working. Um, do you think it'll be better for grunts to be categorized by dice pool thresholds for different roles? Dice pool thresholds for different roles. That's interesting. I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess I'm just not sure about that. Um, I'm not sure mainly because dice pool thresholds can quickly get disconnected from the mechanics behind those dice. So you'd have to be careful about where you set those thresholds because the other thing about thresholds is that people just go to the max of the limit. Um, they tend to. So you would want to be careful. Like, let's say you had a scale where like prime threat you had the limited dice. Someone might throw like 60 dice, and there are circumstances where you could do that, but they require a lot of investment, and that investment has a certain thematic weight. Um, let's look. Have the council considered doing like a short summaries on why, for example, mechanics thread suggestions get approved, denied, mostly because like as someone who doesn't know all the ins and outs of the suggestion and spends a lot of time asking, hey, is X cool or what? I find it kind of bled to know not to know why a decision was made, since it makes it harder to grasp how the balance works. We can definitely do more town halls to answer specific questions. If you want to know why about a specific ruling, um, I'm always happy to explain it to you. Um, Doing it in general, we're suffering a lot of staff burnout as it is. I don't think I can do that for everything. I don't think I have the administrative capacity to do that. Um, but if anything in particular you have questions for, I'm always willing to answer. Um, but yeah, I don't think I have the staff to do that for every decision in ruling. Um, Basically, I can make a wide variety of dice pulls from the maximum given and the threshold threat limits right now. Like we hit 12 skill rank at TL7 along with all the money and stuff. Um, yeah, it's taking all the extreme examples of. I'll write how we derived this, but basically, you take all. I wish I had that plot easily accessible. I'll write an essay on how we derived it, and it'll make a little bit more sense. I've been meaning to do it. But essentially, the high end, the high end grunts go really high end. Um, um, High enough that you can break PR6 into all those different levels. I know it was previously brought up that people were scared to report things about mods and the like because of power difference. Do you have any plans to do some sort of anonymous report system to help with those concerns? Uh, I could probably do something like that. I tried doing something like that with tough questions. It's just, how do I put this? So, anonymously sending things to me just, how do I say this? We have a report, anonymous report form that goes to all the moderators. Um, the If people just want to anonymously send things to me, um, how do I put this? This isn't the best way to phrase it, but I'll say it. If you if you're afraid to PM me about a issue regarding staff, then the trust is already broken down enough that the form won't fix it. Um, so I've been working on trying to improve that trust level, and people have been PMing me more often. Um, so I don't want to go in that direction um, because, like the anonymous form, how can you prove if you're so mistrustful that you need an anonymous form to even talk to me, then how can you trust I'll even follow up on that anonymous message to me? Um, I do find it concerning that people are so afraid. Um, but an anonymous form to me isn't the right way to handle that. we'll see. CTT asks, follows up on their comment about the explanations of mechanics. It's more so I don't have to go digging for the why of things. Just the one sentence. We decided it'll skew balance. Excuse me, it'll skew balance too much. Um, that still takes time to do at scale. We have something like 500 mechanics tickets. People ask a lot of questions, and even that small effort on top of all the other mechanical work is a lot at scale. So I hesitate. Um, but I can see what the mechanics team can do. Um, but it's just yeah, it's hard when you have so many tickets coming in. I've been curious about how involving context more in depth in runs, which I can do pretty well, but I also want to include them sometimes in negative consequences potentially. I understand that if it's a character many people have, it's risky, but I think it might open more storytelling possibilities if the party were to cover a beloved context back in exchange for the contact helping them in a critical way, risking consequences on their livelihood or even their very lives. Thoughts on making a system for this kind of thing. I mean, just I'm pretty sure GM rules just say reach out to thematics, and we can. Yeah, I'm pretty sure in the GM rules it says list of things that need approval, and on that list is runs involving contacts. But I don't see a problem with that. Just make sure to what we don't want. A long time ago, in a very far away place, a GM was like geeking contacts with no real story oomph, just to cause tension, and it was a bunch of bad feels. We don't want something like that. Um, so we basically want to make sure that the contact, if it's put at risk, has a meaningful story. But I mean, yeah, this is 6 world people die, right? Just reach out to thematics. Um, Archmag says, "Well, I don't mean the scaling on number maximums. I mean like basically they are saying um, they want a listing of dice pools they should be aiming for a threat level. Yeah, I can pull that together. Crud. I promised 2 things already. Okay, I need to write down to do um, prime NPC clarification, prime NPC clarification, dice pool limits per threat level. Um, it's not. So one thing about the threat level, it's not just about the dice. Um, I can set up an example where a threat level 6 Street Sam is very different than threat level 8 Street Sam, mainly because you can afford more wear and higher quality wear that lets you stuff more stuff in. Like, I have a threat level 8 Cyber Centaur um, that's terrifying. Has the exact same dice as threat level 6. Um, but absolutely destroys PCs because it has so much more armor. It's not just about the dice pool. It's about the full scope of the capabilities the NPC brings. Armor is typically considered outside the scope of Rule of 12. Um, um, yeah. Yeah, we need to post more. I need to post a bunch of grunt NPCs so people get a sense of what each level is. That's what I'll be focusing on the next few months. Tough Questions is open for the entire server to see, which I could imagine being difficult for the use of anonymously reporting abuses of power. Um, hmm. If it'll make you all feel more comfortable, I can set it up, but I'll say this. People have come to me in PMs with complaints about council members. And most of the time, when I in discussion with them, I most of the time in discussion with them, it tends to just be misunderstanding. More recent example, someone complained, and I showed them the the screenshots from the leadership channel to prove that it the ruling didn't come from a place of malice. Um, um, like a lot of times when I get a complaint, it's like this council member proposed this ruling to attack my character, and we we operate at such a high at how do I put this? Those type of complaints, I yeah, I don't know how to solve that, but it's yeah. Um, I'll set it up. But a lot of time, it's just gonna be a misunderstanding. Um, if moderation is so spinless and swamped, then why not elect new moderation? I am leading the moderation team in the short term. Um, let's see. Have I missed any questions? Can someone ping? If I missed the question, please pull it back out. So I guess while I wait for my questions, I'll explain on why moderation is so spoonless and swamped. Um, a lot of moderation issues are solved with communication. Communication is something I've spent 20 years of my career developing and really refining how to talk to people. Um, and that's not a common skill. And I feel bad when I throw people into that role, which I'm quickly realizing needs a lot of experience to pull off on a server this large. Um, I also I find it one of the things I find interesting looking at server culture is that when I select a leadership member, um, in a few of the cases, that leadership member had the same mistrust of leadership, and then like the player base turns on that leader quite quickly, especially the moderation head, and it's a problem. And I rather take that hit. Um, so yeah, for now until I at least build more trust in the community, I am leading the moderation team. This also will help in. There's been a feeling among people that moderation has vendettas against people. Um, I think I can solve that with communication, and I'm going to take the next few months until we get that fixed, and then I'll appoint a moderation head. But it's too things are too volatile right now. I need to lead moderation. Disco Goblin says it's usually just miscommunication is a very bad way to look at potential abuses of power by moderation. It's not at all the justification for not having a anonymous report function. Um, like I said, I'll set it up, and I investigate every report I get seriously. But most of the time, it is miscommunication. Um, that's just how everything has panned out. Mainly because the few cases it was valid, I've banned that staff member. Um, so it's most of the time it's just miscommunication. I'll set up the form. I'll set it up. Um, I've also yeah. I don't mean to be antagonistic, but it seems like a bad look when concerns about moderation are responded to the idea that it's usually misunderstanding and the community turns on people when they become mod. It comes off as deflection. I didn't mean it that way. We have gotten valid reports before, and I banned those staff members. It's just that's I'm more explaining why an anonymous report form wouldn't wouldn't solve this particular issue because there's sort of so if someone submits an anonymous report, there's two outcomes. Like it was a misunderstanding or a staff member gets banned. Most of the time it's a misunderstanding. And I do look into everything. Um, but it's going to come off like I'm ignoring it, which is just going to amplify the trust issues. I rather try to cultivate more trust so people bring issues to me so I can follow up with them. So there's a lot of comments about mistrusting some staff members. I've selected those staff members because they're highly skilled in their area of expertise and they have my full trust. Um, like Techo Mander knows every book from every edition, especially the early stuff, and they are invaluable. Especially when we were searching for um, the Foci information. They dug up a lot of that information. Um, I need someone like them on my team. Um, and they're active in these discussions, which are often very complex and take a few hours. They're doing their part. Are there plans to recruit more mods? As far as I've seen, mods are either too burnt out or not active anymore, and seems like adding a couple people to the team would be beneficial for mods who are still active and the community. Um, hmm. Probably I've been looking. So not an open application system. I have been looking to tap someone as a mod. After this, I'll PM them and add them, and if they're willing to be added to the team, I'll do that. Mainly because they've been just demonstrating strong leadership, worthy of a mod. But you need to be very careful in selecting a moderator because that person carries the community banner and can do a lot of harm if they don't moderate correctly. So I'm very cautious in appointing new moderators. Very cautious. But I have someone I have someone in mind that I've noticed them stepping up to a plate when the server's been heated. Um, and after this conversation, I'll reach out to them, and if they're willing to join the team, I'll add them to the team. Um, but you can't just not not just anyone can be a mod. It takes a very special skill set. I apologize for that error. I'm just looking for a question to answer. So there's a comment expressing frustration about um, a staff member posting their frustration. And to be frank, it is pretty frustrating some days running the server. Like, I've been doing background stuff for the last 12 hours. I haven't really posted anything in public chats, but I've been responding to PMs pretty much all day. And helping people who are feeling really hurt by a server. Um, that's a lot of what the staff does. And I'm satisfied with the activity of all my staff members. Um, and you'll have to take my word that if a staff member didn't satisfy me with their activity, I would remove them. That's pretty much all I can respond to that, um, Tweenie. Any other questions? Where is I lost the event chat? There it is. How, aside from not being horrible to each other, can we help strengthen the server? I get really happy when I see people do cool RP scenes. Like, I adore those Taco Temple runs that we used to do. Um, um, yeah, it's really cool when I see players help other players have cool moments. Use yes and in RP to bring other players in. Use help shepherd a new player. Um, yeah, just generally be an awesome person. If you're interested in volunteering for a team, um, I'm sure Mechanics, Thematics, CareGen would love to have you. But that takes a fair bit of dedication to a server that not everyone wants to do. So I can't ask it of anyone. Um, Any other questions or comments or concerns? What I might do for next time is gather questions ahead of time, so I have some buffer things. But like, I'm I'll vibe here for as long as I need to. I am trained to deal with media and can take a grilling. Um, so ask away. I will say, in regard to moderation as well, I'm going to make a community health channel as soon as I get the processing time to do it. Um, and that'll be a shared channel between RP and moderation to help process things that need both teams' attention. Um, so I guess also I'll say this in terms of moderation. Um, this is going to sound terrible. I'm going to say it anyway. Really think about my motivations in this situation. I want to get the largest server I can, um, because like once we start hitting 2K members, we just start winning. Like I with 2K members, I can like go drive to CGL's headquarters, knock on their door, and say, "What up? I run a community with 2,000 players, and we're not happy. You best fix this." Um, and other clout as a leader of a large community. Um, and banning people, we had to ban someone really popular once. And it was after spending a lot of time working with them. And we lost most our GMs and most our players. And it was the right move. And I'm willing to take that hit. But it does do damage when you permaban someone. Um, and that's just not aligned with my motivations, my incentives. Um, um, like a fair bit of the time in moderation, we'll discuss we'll weigh what that person did to the positive they contribute. Because everyone, like, pretty much everyone does something that, like, crosses the line they really shouldn't have. It happens all the time. But, like, in 90% of the cases, we can fix that and adjudicate that by just, like, sending them PM saying, hey, that wasn't cool. Don't do that again. That normally solves the problem. It's a lot easier, a lot less headache inducing when that solves the problem. Um, if memory serves, who's the last person we permabanned? If memory serves, the last person we permabanned, I had well, the last person we permabanned, I had a few of the monitors go around, moderators go around checking with major figures in the community, and they all basically agreed that that person needed to go. Um, and we sort of have to balance moving too quickly or not moving quickly enough when banning someone. And truthfully, we have so many motivating factors to us not acting, and like hoping the problem goes away. Um, so yeah, I'm not really in the business of banning someone for reasons that aren't valid. Um, oh, I forgot. The person before Cal. I will say also we have someone. There is a active community member with multiple warnings on them and a few like 3-day bans because they're like we really don't want a permanent ban if we don't need to, and I sign off on all permanent bans personally, not the GM, not the moderation head, and it does suck to issue that order. It sucks a lot because oftentimes it's yeah, it's not fun to do that. But they're yeah, I don't know what else I could say to make you all trust me, but we try. Um, any other questions? I just see typing, so I'm using dead air now. Any other questions? If there's no further questions, I think I'll end it here. Thank you all for attending.